Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Writer's Realm podcast, and thanks for joining us on the epic adventure we call writing. We're your hosts,
Holly Rebillard,
Austin Matthews,
and Bob Adetto. And today we're going to talk about creating stakes. Also, we have no guests. We're our own guests today. So you're stuck with Austin, Bob, and Holly. And we're going to, usually we have somebody else here to go over stuff, and hopefully they know what we're talking about. And today, none of us know what we're talking about. So
that tracks.
well,
that tracks.
in that case, I'm just going to start with my hot take.
Okay,
Lower
hot
your
take.
stakes.
Okay, here we
Lower
go.
the stakes of your book.
Lower your expectation stakes. So, stakes. I mean, so also, what do you think? Creating stakes, like somebody comes up to you, hey, I'm writing a book about monster gerbils attacking, I don't know, well-known Hollywood actors, and he says, "Hey, I need to."
I can see Austin's gears are turning.
Yeah,
right
they
now.
are.
He's already
Because I'm like, okay.
he's already writing this
Who?
book, Bob.
Gerbils and
I'm
Hollywood
thinking,
actor.
like,
Let me think.
who's the perfect actor
Yeah.
to be in that movie? And it's one of two people for me: John Malkovich
Oh, okay.
or Steve Buscemi. I feel like those are the two I would want to see in that movie.
Let's do this. So anyway, they want to create stakes. So how would you describe this, or how would you help them?
For specifically gerbils, monster gerbils attacking Hollywood celebrities. I think the target honestly makes your stakes. So like you think about attacking celebrities, like it's not just nobody that elevates your stakes. Kind of like, whenever you're talking about an alien invasion movie, the first thing they do is blow up the White House or whatever. Like stakes are set in that way.
That's right.
But like to my hot take that I actually do believe is maybe lower your stakes. Like maybe it doesn't have to be Hollywood celebrities because they are monstrous gerbils. And like, yeah, maybe it's a young adult book where it's monstrous gerbils and like it's attacking your teacher and you have this moral conundrum of like, I don't want to take a test on Monday. Like, so my stakes are like, okay, somebody's in danger, but also like, I didn't actually study. Am I going to get forgiven for this if I actually save them? So it's like you can have low stakes or, stakes relative to the size of your book and then also to your audience.
Well, that's a great point because we were talking about this before we got started, and Austin said not every book has to be, what did you say, like in
a
the
Marvel
MCU?
movie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, en contraire, all of my books have to be, that's German for on the contrary. That I said, no, all of my books have to be high stakes. Like but so what you're saying is, depending on the mood of the book, right? Depending on the mood of the story, in like, we can make it MCU level, or we can make it very, very low stakes. Because I was for a hot minute interested in writing fantasy cozy, and they have very low stakes. As in, just an example for low stakes would be there's a bake off, and like who's gonna win, and that's it. That's the stakes. Yeah, and it's simple and it works.
And yeah, too, it's like, also if your stakes are always, up to 100, if the world is always in danger, then the world stops feeling like it's in danger.
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead.
I think you also have to consider the length of your book, right? Because if you have an incredibly high stakes story, it's going to be potentially longer than one book. And so that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, is that you have so many ideas and you're trying to cram them all into one book, but are you really doing such high stakes justice by trying to cram them, cram all those details and all that information into, one book? Or are you willing to commit to more?
Yeah. And something too I was just thinking about as you were talking is like, even if your stakes are that astronomical thing, like you have to think about what is the stakes for the main character. Like this main character doesn't necessarily feel connected to the world as a whole. Like if the world is in danger, I'm not thinking about the world being in danger. I'm thinking about the people in my life being in danger. Okay. And so like, even if it is global catastrophe, that's not the stakes for Austin in this story.
Well, yeah, so we have the stakes for the story, and then we could have the stakes for our characters, right? Our main characters for their character arc, if you're going to do such a thing, which most fantasy or sci-fi opera, most of these characters do have some sort of a character arc. So there should be something going on for them. And I guess it can vary, right? It could be low, and then it could jump up to high really quick, and then drop back down to low. It could be like it sounds like all very complicated, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and two, it's like just because it's the same story doesn't mean that the stakes for all the characters are going to be the same. Like they can be similar, they could be contrary to each other. So just like really digging into that, and like that's where you get like the fun tension. It's like, okay, the stakes of a book with two opposing characters is that if one of them gets what they want, the other one doesn't, and like that builds in the stakes for the reader, because it's like, I don't know who I want to win. Like, I can understand both characters, kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah, and it even works with side characters as well, right? Like if I have my best friend who is about to be, if I don't fix something and they're going to die, I would care. But, another character who's never met them who benefits from the situation probably doesn't care. And even if they knew that, that person might die, they might not care at all, because for them, they have no emotional attachment to this person. And so they're going to get what they want. And it's, for them, it's considered low stakes because they don't know that person. They don't care about that person. But for me, it would be high stakes, right?
Yeah. So do you think we should have like opposing intensity on the stakes, or can everything be low throughout the book for everybody? All mellow, all low.
Oh, see, low and mellow are very different in my mind. So, like, one book that I really, really love, and I'm probably in the vast minority on this one, is One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. And it's basically the entire book is just one day in this guy's life in a gulag. And, like, there's not a whole lot at stake. He's in a gulag. He's not getting out. And it's just, like, his routine throughout the day. And so it's like there's not exactly stakes in a traditional sense, but you can see that like he has created his own stakes. Like there's a part where it's like he's doing the manual labor and he's upset with the coworkers because they're doing a bad job. And he's like, listen, you at least have to have pride in the work that you're doing. And so like that's what's at stake for him, is like his humanity and his dignity is at stake, even though everything else has been stripped away.
Okay.
And so I don't know.
So that would be...
So it'd be low stakes,
that
but
woy low,
high intensity,
but not mellow. Yeah,
exactly.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, well, that sounds kind of like it's a intensity for him. So I was just thinking jail survival, or what am I going to eat for lunch, kind of thing. But anyway, how about Holly in your book? I'm almost done with your book. Heart Unbound, right?
Heartbound.
Heartbound.
Heartbound. The
Heartbound. Sorry, I messed everything up. Let me start over.
Man.
I'm almost started
Restart the podcast.
God. Where did Unbound come from? I don't know. That's the sequel. That's a sequel.
It feels like it's been so long since I've written that book that I honestly don't even remember.
No.
Ironically, I do have it here though, as you can see.
There it is. Yep, that's the one.
It is.
Yeah.
On my desk, I've been going through and tagging it for some things as I'm working on my new book.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Is it going to be a sequel to that one, or different?
It's not a sequel, but it definitely ties in. In a way, Heartbound is a bit of a prequel to The Blood Sky. So it is and it isn't. Like, you could read The Blood Sky, and if you had never read Heartbound, that would be fine. But there's definitely some things that if you had read both, you would be like, oh, I see that.
Nice.
Which I've read in some other series before, and I just really enjoy that like extra little bit of information. And it's always fun to talk to other people who haven't read those things, because then you feel like you know more than they do about them. I love.
You get the inside information. That's nice.
But I'm glad you're almost finished with it.
I'm almost finished with it. I feel like your book is definitely high stakes, because no spoilers, but if they don't solve this curse, like, someone's gonna die, right? So I mean, that's definitely high. There's like a ticking clock here, so that will definitely raise the stakes on stuff. Ooh, and after we get comments from both of you, we should talk about how can we create stakes? Like, what would be a good way? Anyway, go ahead.
How to ratchet it up? Yeah.
Anyway, hey, I'm gonna mute myself. I just realized I did something really stupid, and everybody has to know this, of course. I was eating ice cream right before the show.
Oh, and you still have it at your desk?
No, I put it in the fridge. I put it in my little fridge, but I put it in sideways. And I wasn't thinking, like, all of a sudden, like, wait a second, that's going to start dripping out.
You can just hear, like, drip.
Yeah.
Drip.
Okay. Bye.
I'm trying to like. I think that's the thing is that like it's easy to have this like creep of your scope of your stakes. Like I feel like maybe not all writers, but I feel like it's the tendency of a lot of writers to just want to ratchet up the scope of it as opposed to just the intensity of it. It's like it's really easy, especially in fantasy or sci-fi. It's like whole world's in danger. Protagonist, the only one that can save anything. So
yeah, that's really I think I like what you said earlier too, is that if everything is always high stakes, right, that means that what is high stakes? That's just that becomes the norm. And so I think that's really important as well to consider with your plot is that, obviously there's a lot of conflict throughout your plot, I hope. And so that conflict, though, doesn't always have to be high stakes conflict. In fact, it almost shouldn't be really high stakes conflict because high stakes conflict, as we know, takes longer and more effort to resolve. And so those smaller conflicts need to be smaller. Otherwise, they're going to take up way too much time in your book. And they're going to, if everything is heightened, nothing's going to really seem that exciting when it's solved.
Yeah. Well, and two, I think that like a good way to think of your stakes is like, it should be following just the story arc too. So it's like it starts with the main character kind of knowing a little bit about what's going on. So the stakes are kind of low and it keeps ramping. And then you get to like the dark night of the soul and you're like, oh man, like everything is at stake. And whether it's actually the world or it's just like it feels like that to the main character, like that's the important part is that it feels like that to the main character and then thereby to the reader.
And I guess speaking of readers, like luckily there's so many different genres and so many different types of writers that some of us like high stakes constantly. I'm thinking of a very famous thriller writer, and of course I can't. Oh, Dan? No, not Dan. I mean, Dan Brown is one. But there's one other guy. I have like 8 of his books here. All I have to do is turn around and I'll see him. But I'm too lazy.
Dean Koontz, I don't know.
Yeah, so like somebody like that. And every single book is high stakes, and just people are eating it up. I feel within a series, like what I was doing in my series, Coil and Fang, I was high stakes for the first. The first one was Chicago's. Oh, spoiler alert! Sorry, Chicago's going to get blown up. The second one, I don't remember. Something else was gonna. People are gonna die. But it kept happening, and by the fourth book, I was like, wait, I don't want to keep doing this because. Like, so in a series, I feel like you have to really balance it out because if the world can't die in every single book, that just gets like ridiculous.
Unless you let the world die.
Unless you let it die, like Austin always wants to make sure and kill everyone, and everything.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, like, that's the thing is, like, I was writing a series for, like, high fantasy stuff, and it's like, magic was at stake, and in the first book, I was like, cool, magic, gone. And so it's like they had to deal with the consequences of like this, like the main magic system of this world just being gone. And then it's like, okay, well, how do we pick up the fragments? And it's like, just, I enjoy whenever like the stakes don't feel high if you don't let them pay off sometimes. Like if it doesn't actually happen, the stakes become meaningless.
Yeah. Okay. Is that like a Chekhov's gun kind of thing? You introduce something in the beginning?
I mean, maybe. I think it's just for me, it's like a plot armor thing. Like I don't actually feel the stakes if I know it's going to be fine. Like if you take a hostage if I know the hostage is going to be fine, it doesn't feel like there's stakes.
Right.
And like if you don't ever kill off a character, or the only characters you kill off were like introduced the chapter before, it doesn't feel like there's actual stakes there.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm intense and like to see things go wrong.
You like Tarantino movies where things always go wrong.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Characters.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, when you're like, oh, a bunch of the main characters just died in one scene. Like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Yeah, I heard him explaining it. It was pretty fun. He's like, "Hey, just a bank robber. Okay, they planned this whole thing out, a bank robbery. Everything's going great. They run out to the car. Where's the keys? Like, and here comes the cops, and they're just freaking out. You know, like that's a great way to like just throw the wrench in there. It does not have to go perfect. You know. So, how about that? I mean, that's a way to kind of create new stakes that just show up, right?
Yeah, just letting something go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really great too. And I think it comes back to, again, that's a great way if you have an incredible story that you want to tell over 2, 3, or 4 or 7 books, right? So you have really high stakes, and everything is at stake, and the villain wins at the end of your first book. And one, that's great because people like it when the protagonist loses sometimes, right? And so you build up to these high stakes, and it completely drops. But now you have this whole new area of conflict to explore because you're living in a world where nothing is good. And that, builds conflict for people, and that helps people grow, and expands that character arc. But then in the second book, you can once again build that back up to that high stakes because now you know what life is like without all of this, turmoil. And you know what it's like with this turmoil. So now it's incredibly high stakes. So you go from high stakes, with the world being taken over is up here.
Yeah.
But then the second time around, it's actually way up here, even though it's the exact same thing, because now we know what we have to lose. Whereas in the beginning, you don't really know.
Wow, that's a very creative way to introduce like new stakes. Or, oh, you thought this was the problem? Well, guess what? Yeah, here's the real problem.
It kind of comes back to that, like, you don't know what you've lost till it's gone, or whatever that, that song is. It's the same way with writing, right? And it's the same thing with like a character's emotion, is that when they lose something, they're like, oh, wow, okay, so it's actually so much worse the second time there's a possibility of losing it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Well, what are some? I think we kind of touched on them. Some of the stakes that we're talking about, but if we're talking about creating stakes, like what are some like typical stakes, high stakes?
Well, the world ending.
Okay.
It's always number one in fantasy books.
The world ending, high stakes, or a land, or like I'm just thinking, if Sauron got hold of his ring, then yeah, death to like everybody. So world ending.
But you could also like think about it in like a more personal way. Like for me, like high stakes in my life story would be like getting laid off, or my brother dying. Like those are high stakes. Like it doesn't have to be earth shattering. It just has to be life interrupting.
Right.
Don't tell your brother that him dying is not earth shattering. I hope he's not listening.
Hey, Tony, I'm sorry, love you, but you do listen to this podcast. Not earth shattering. Like the earth is still going to be intact when you die. You know this.
Yeah. No, you're bringing up a good point, because there's the earth, like we're talking about everyone dying in a pandemic or something. But it could be my world is ending. My world, meaning my partner, my kids, or So that's another. Those are also high stakes, but they're.
And I think that too fluctuates whenever you're talking about your target audience too. Because like if you're talking about adult fantasy, that might be very different than a middle grade fiction. Like the high stakes for an 8th grader is going to be very different than the high stakes for a 45-year-old person.
Yeah.
I think you can also get really creative with it as well. So, high stakes doesn't always have to be like magic being wiped out, or the world coming to an end. It could be something like, I don't know, what does your story look like if suddenly there's no way to grow fruit, right?
Yeah.
Or like you can't grow potatoes anymore. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
It can be something super simple, but depending on what your story's about, that can be hugely impactful, right?
Yeah.
It's one of my, it always makes me laugh that it's a novel and also TV series Outlander. When this woman goes back in time and she tells them in Scotland, like, hey, all this stuff's about to happen. Make sure that you plant potatoes. And they're like, well, what the hell's a potato?
Oh, no.
And because she had told him about these potatoes, it turns out that they were able, to feed their families and everything, live off these potatoes.
Oh, good.
Which I think in history, they actually didn't know about the potatoes in Scotland during this time period until quite a ways later.
Wow.
So that's a great example, right? Is
Yeah,
like, how does that affect it? Because for, everyone's starving and people dying because they don't have access to potatoes. That could be pretty high stakes.
Yeah.
And it's
I mean,
a
it
freaking
was high
potato.
stakes for Mark Watney too. Like, just sitting there on Mars, just like, and you know how many people are captivated by whether one man on Mars could grow potatoes? Apparently, we care a lot about growing potatoes in our fiction.
Yeah. I mean, if I ever get stuck in my room, now I know how to grow potatoes in here.
Well, I think it's a great example too of like how you can take how something so simple can have such a big impact. And I think that's like the important thing is it with any story or any plot, right? It can be something so tiny and so little. It just depends on how you use it and what the importance of it is.
Right. I like that. Start simple. Just keep it really simple. But again, we can create a few different stakes. Right? The big, like, I'm sorry, I keep using Lord of the Rings, but because it's just so easy. Everybody knows what we're talking about, except my daughter, who can read like $100 a year, but she doesn't. She still has not read any Lord of the Rings. Anyway, she's not going to listen to this. I forgot my point because I'm making jokes. Gosh darn it! I hate when that happens, guys. Lord of the Rings. So they got to take the ring to destroy it, right? But the smaller, like, inner world stakes is Frodo strong enough to do that, right? And is Samwise, his buddy, his partner through this, is he brave enough to stay with them? You know what I mean? So like, there's all kinds of multi-layered stakes that we can create here to make your story exciting and get your readers to love your work.
Yeah, but like even thinking about like cozy things. So I'm like, cozy mysteries also have stakes, and it's like, yeah, it might on the surface level be, okay, a lot lower stakes. But like the idea is to have, some of that tension there. Like obviously you don't want the intensity of like, a hardcore thriller, like an action thriller, or like, I don't need John Wick running through my cozy mystery novel.
Yeah.
But there has to be some level of stakes. Otherwise, it's like, what's progressing them through? And so I'm just wondering, like, what's the lowest level of stakes y'all feel like you could get away with?
Like, am I gonna miss the bus or not? Or even better, which I feel like is actually up there. A guy going on a first date. Is this gonna be the right girl for me or right person for me? That's a little bit more intense than just missing a bus, I feel.
That's interesting. Actually, go ahead, Holly.
I was going to say, so again, this is where it gets tricky because what happens if I miss the bus? Well, I have somewhere really important to be. I'm going to lose my job and I'm not going to be able to feed my family. So I steal a car to get to my job because I missed the bus.
Holly, it's like you're an author or something.
I steal a car. Well, it turns out there's a dead body in the trunk.
Oh my gosh, Holly.
So,
what the heck? You're amazing. I love
and
this.
just like that, missing the bus, right, is the stepping stone because it starts with missing the bus. But what is it escalating?
But what if it was a story just about missing the bus?
Okay.
Like, how long can you have that?
Yeah.
Like, can we keep the stakes as low as possible, or do we have to ratchet it up?
I feel like that right there is a full-on Stephen King novel. And I can see this in my head right now. I can see him writing some incredible novel about how he's like sat there and he missed the bus. So instead, he just sat there at this bus stop and watched.
Yeah.
And what were all these absolutely insane things that he saw or heard,
Oh
you
wow.
know, sitting there
Or
at the bus stop.
witnessed. Or
Yeah,
witnessed. Yeah.
at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's
Wow.
the thing is like I've always had this idea for a book that I want to write, but I'm never going to because nobody's going to like it. And so it's going to have like 6 main characters, and all of them are from disparate parts, and they're slowly moving, getting closer and closer to each other. And you're waiting for the moment that they're all going to get together. And it's like you can see like one of them moves to another city to move into the same city that everybody else is in. They're all going through their day. They all go to like the same train but different train stations. They all end up on the same train car, and you're like, what's gonna happen? And it's just them on the train car, and then they all just look at nothing and just stay in silence, and then they go their separate ways. And it's this tension of like the stakes are like you missed out on all these other people in your daily life.
Yeah.
And so it's like the stakes of like, what are you missing in your daily life? But like that's not exactly high stakes, but it's also like that's the ultimate stakes of everyday life at the same time. But maybe that's a ridiculous idea.
I think it's important to think about that it doesn't just have to be like a physical stakes of something. We have moral stakes as well, right? Morally, what is at stake for us or emotionally? And so that all plays a really important part in it as well, because those things will build off whatever the ultimate high stakes are.
Yeah. And I think we can create stakes for the bigger overarching story idea, and then how our protagonist responds to those, right? Because it could be high or low. Like, I don't know. I mean, you guys are supposed to be helping me out here because I don't know what I'm
Yeah, no, I agree. And so something else to think about as well is that it should be whatever your stakes are, whether they're high or low, they have to be your reader has to be able to relate to those. And so that's always worth considering, because it doesn't matter if the stakes are incredibly high if your reader isn't like, oh gosh, like if they don't feel that that is a problem, then it doesn't matter how high the stakes are. If they can't relate to it, then they're going to seem really, really low to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do want our readers to keep turning the page.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe one of the problems I have with like the over the top stakes is that like it gets divorced from reality. And so it's like it's hard for me to like worry about the world, but it's a lot easier for me to think about my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man being worried about Aunt May. Like that's easy for me to be like, "Oh no. Like don't let Aunt May. No, don't do that." Yeah. Uncle Ben whatever, but Aunt May no.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, so we low stakes and cozies are all about low. My wife religiously reads Agatha Christie every night. She's been doing that, I think, since January or something like that. Because there's so many books to read. It's usually just, well, who did it? I mean, that's it. That's the stakes, And it is usually like, okay, we're all kind of either stuck here. And the boat's not coming back, until Thursday morning. So there's your clock, and then, but I mean, that's about it. I don't know. I mean, sometimes within that story, though, there's still there's obviously a murder there, and he might kill somebody else. I'm trying to remember one of her famous books where everyone was invited to an island and they all ended up dead. Spoiler alert. But
and then there were none.
And then there were none. That's it. Yeah, that was insane. But I mean, so that's a little bit higher than normal. But yeah, cozies are a really good example of and I have read readers that go, no, I want to read that. Like I mean, I just remembered that thriller author James Patterson, where like everyone is going to die if they don't figure this out. And that's every single book. And then they go, I just want to like relax and I just want a new recipe for cookies. Like I'm kind of done. I need to chill
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah, and I think too, I started off writing, epic fantasy, and it's like, okay, how high can we make the stakes? So like I've been enjoying kind of stepping back and being like, okay, like let's do, something like romance where it's like, the will they won't they is the big tension point, or doing my cozy horror. It's like really like the only thing at stake is one person's sanity. Like it's a big stakes for them, but like in the grand scheme of the universe, it's not huge stakes.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, and plus it's just a fun genre. So
Yeah, it's very fun. Yeah.
So do you feel like for low stakes then to go the opposite way, um, low stakes are more focusing on the emotional intimacy versus a huge spectacle of something, right?
I
It could
think
be
so.
something as simple as, you know, you not wanting to tell a friend that you're moving away
Mm,
because, that for you, that's low stakes, right? Nothing, the world's not going to end if you leave the
right.
town, hopefully.
mhm.
Right.
But that's low stakes, but it still can carry a lot of tension.
Yeah.
Or if someone's lying about something,
Hmm.
or, they know that they're going to break up with a person when they move away. And so they
Right.
know that they're moving and they're going to have to break up with this person. And so that can build a lot of tension, but it's still very low stakes, but it's still exciting and it's still
Yeah.
enough to pull
Mhm.
a reader through a whole story.
It's
So I do
still
think like it's possible to write a really great story. You don't have to always have those extremely high stakes.
no.
Yeah. I mean, just get on, any sort of streaming platform and, go to the slice of life section. Like every episode has low stakes, but then like there was one that I was watching called Space Brothers, where it's like, it's about a dude that like is slowly following his dream to like become an astronaut. And
Mm,
it's like he starts as a car salesman, and then suddenly, 100 episodes later, he like has actually done it, and you're like, when did that happen? Like I don't remember this happening, and it's just like is there, and
hmm.
so like it's just really nice to like have this different sort of escapism where it's like it's not grandiose, it's just like getting to see that progression over time is like rewarding in its own way.
Yeah. And Holly, what you're talking about was very, very relatable because all of
Hmm.
us know what rejection feels like. All of us
Hmm.
know what the little inklings of love feel like, the little tingles, in your hands and the butterflies in your stomach. So like all that stuff absolutely works. I mean, because we none of us know what it's like to carry a magical ring across, you know, back to Lord of the Rings. You're right, obviously, but we don't know what that's like. We're just like, well, good luck, kid. But no, we do. Like what you're just talking about is really fascinating because like that's us. That's where we're at, and we know what those conversations are like. We hate when we find out our best friend is the betrayer, right? The Judas and Judas kind of a thing, where you didn't see it coming, and what I'm saying, like, so there's all kinds of real that can be really, really huge, even
Yeah, I
though
mean,
it's very
wasn't
low,
that
low stakes.
wasn't that the stakes of Inside Out too? Like,
I
I'm
haven't
pretty
seen
sure
it yet.
that was.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm like she's like on a different school than her two friends. Like I think that was actually the plot of Inside
Mm,
Out too. But like it felt so intense.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think, so here's a question, I guess. I won't make my statement. I will ask this question. Do you think it's possible to have a high stakes novel without having any low stakes situations?
I'm gonna say it's probably possible, but I think it's gonna be boring. Because you almost take the human element out of it, the human spirit out of it. Because if it's always high stakes. I mean, like, so I'll take my example. They figure out, for my first book, they figure out that Chicago's gonna get destroyed. But within that story, okay, so that's the high stakes. Like, there's a ticking clock. We need to get there before the Zeppelin reaches Chicago. But within that, Coyle is afraid of the dark. She's got a condition where it terrifies her, and guess what? There's tons of stuff in there. So I mean, it's kind of high stakes for her, but it's low stakes
hmm
worldview.
yeah,
So I feel like it would be like a really super tart lemonade without hardly any sugar in it. I don't know.
yeah,
That's just
I
my
would
thoughts.
I would 100% agree because it's like I don't know why Armageddon is the first thing that came to my mind, but I'm like, I don't care that the world's going to end, because it's like, okay, if you have all grandiose stakes, all I care about is the world ending.
Yeah.
I'm not going to care because it doesn't have anything to compare it to or to connect it with.
Yeah.
But like, I care that, who was it? Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler get together. Like, that's the stakes that I care about, that they go against Bruce Willis and do this thing and have that romance.
Right.
And that's the only reason I care that the world is.
That's right. Apparently. Yes. No, you said it right. It's the connections that we're looking for. You know, like a big meteor is destroying the Earth. Cool, but or even also the other one is. I'm sorry, Holly, real quick. Don't Look Up is another one where the huge asteroid's coming, but the real story is all the people involved. You know, and what they're going through and what they're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Holly, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think it also depends, right? Like the world ending, to me, maybe I'm an insane person, I don't know. The world ending, if it was just going to get hit by a meteor, it's probably going to be over pretty quick, right? You're like, it's going to be terrifying, but then, you're not really suffering a whole lot. Like it sucks, but you're not suffering a whole lot versus, I don't know, a freaking zombie apocalypse where you know that you're going to be living your life in fear and it's, you know what I mean? Something like that. Like what defines high stakes? Is high stakes the world ending? Because, if it's painful and half of us die in our sleep, it doesn't matter really versus us getting, chased and chewed apart by zombies. That's gross and terrifying.
Well, it's like when you ask the person, like, what's the worst that could happen? And they're like, well, I could die. I'm like, is that really the worst thing you could imagine? You need to take some time to consider some worse things.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And sometimes I think that's the problem, is that the high stakes aren't so obvious, or they're,
Yeah. What if we rephrased high stakes to life changing? Because I'm thinking, I'm not thinking about getting chewed up by zombies, but I am thinking of like, what happens if I break up, with my partner, or what I'm saying? Those are high stakes for me, like what would alter my life, and is there any way I can head it off at the path? If so, that'd be fantastic. But sometimes it's inevitable. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like even to that point, breaking up versus zombie apocalypse. The perfect example: Shaun of the Dead. She breaks up with him right before the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah,
and we're not really worried about the zombie apocalypse. We're worried about the relationship that just ended and how that's going to reconcile.
Yeah, in the Winchester.
That's right.
So I would think. So how about, that's a good question, Holly. How about what are low stakes? Well, how would you define low stakes?
I think again, the low stakes are just, to me, I would define it as something that's not massively it's not immediately life changing for me. So because we know, like, a little low stakes item now can cause a chain of events that could end up being catastrophic. But if you think about it short term, this decision or this choice is probably, it's going to be okay. Like I'll be fine. It might change my life a little bit, but it's not going to take much for me to rebound from something like that. It's maybe more of an emotional decision. And something that's more, like I said, more intimate versus like a huge spectacle. Maybe it's something that nobody else really notices, or doesn't really affect anyone outside of you or maybe your inner circle, is how I would think about something low stakes.
Yeah, and I think I really enjoyed something you said earlier about it being like you having that moral decision where it's like maybe nobody even knows that there's a stake there except for that character, where it's like, I can do this thing, nobody's going to know about it. It won't change anything, but it'll change the way that I view myself as a person. And like, that's the stake, is like my dignity and integrity.
So is that life changing though?
I mean, it's the way I perceive myself.
I guess so. Gosh darn it. Have we just talked ourselves into a circle?
I mean,
high stakes, low stakes, life changing.
I mean, I would argue that the lower the stakes, the more high the stakes. Like the grandiose things, the spectacles, are they're fireworks. They don't do anything.
Mm.
But like whenever you have one of those like down to the earth things, fireworks are going to blow up your life. They'll blow off your hand, as we in the medical industry know well enough.
Oh gosh.
So it's like the higher it is, the less dangerous it is, the less impactful it is. But the closer it is to the ground, the more it hits.
Yeah.
I'd also be tempted to say that and this is, I'm sure, and I hope someone who's listening will come back and respond to this and say, give me 5 examples of how wrong I am. But I almost feel like something like the higher the stakes, the less likely we are to relate to them. Because we've never really lived through something like that. And so I think that's where it's important to find a balance, especially in fantasy, because you need to have those really high stakes things, because that's what is exciting in its imagination, and it's imagining what that world would be like if that happened, versus all of those little low stakes, emotionally intimate moments that we can relate to. So having all those low stakes moments that, we experience maybe on a daily, weekly, monthly basis versus this huge high stakes event that, we don't get to experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I agree.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like that thing that like, you have the Marvel moment of like Thanos snapping and half of humanity going away. Like half of humanity going away doesn't hit me. Watching each person hold somebody as they go away hits me. And so it's like, it's not the grandiose stuff, to your point, Holly. Like it's one person disappearing is also huge stakes. I get it. But like in the spectrum of
Tony.
stakes.
Except for Tony's brother. Anyway.
It's not earth shattering. It's not literally going to split the earth in two. So.
Yeah. Huh. And so I guess as readers, do we need both? Do we like both? Is it, what do we look for as readers?
I think I need both.
Okay.
I personally need both. So I think I'm actually going to answer my earlier question, is can we have a book with high stakes without having any low stakes? And I have actually read some books like that. And now that I'm thinking about it, those books were ones that I finished and thought, where was the plot here? Right, because I didn't feel like I had connected to anything. I read through it and there was no connection for me really. It was just all a race to get to this, big moment. And so I guess you can, but I think that you have to. I have to have both to really enjoy something that I'm reading.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you have like, so something else that I'm thinking about is that juxtaposition between the extremes is so important. And that's why I find Scrubs, the TV show, to have some of the saddest moments in TV history, because it spends so much time being funny and frivolous. And so when the stakes are ramped up, it hits so much harder than dramas ever can. But it's also why dramas can be funnier than Scrubs, because it spends so much time being serious that when they do something that's like, oh, I was not ready for that, it can hit me so much harder. And so like, I think that's why, that the thing that you're going for the most of your tone isn't actually what's going to hit the hardest in a lot of ways. It's the other thing. It's where you switch your tone is where it's going to hit.
Yeah, I think we're kind of leading on to something here, which is what will make the biggest impact on our reader, or us first as the author. What would hurt? Not hurt, but what?
Maybe hurt.
Okay, yeah, but what would be the biggest impact? Because we're all thinking about when we're writing. Austin wants to kill off his protagonist within chapter 1, but we're thinking it. But seriously, all of us are thinking it, and all of us will usually bring our protagonist very, very close to death, because that's going to be, in a lot of stories, that's going to be the biggest impact. Like, oh no, not this one, But I think that could be instead of like how can I figure out how like the world is going to end this time? Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't care. Zombies, asteroids that are zombies. Ooh, that sounds good. I don't care. But like, right, it's these characters, you know, and what they're going through and how they respond. I feel like that's where our target needs to be, our bullseye is what would make the biggest impact here. What do you think? The contrarian.
I mean, yeah, like we're trying to move people and to make them think, to make them feel, in ways that, like, you know, it doesn't always have to be exactly what I'm shooting for, but like having some sort of impact. And like, you know, hopefully it's what I'm shooting for. And whenever I'm sad about a character dying, the reader's sad instead of happy. But you never know, because like some of my characters are not necessarily the most likable. But like, yeah, I'm just trying to think through what would you want other than to be impactful.
Yeah.
I think it's really good as well if you let the characters define how high those stakes are, right? So for example, I was reading a book where there's the world's going to be taken over basically, right, by the villain. But in order to stop this from happening, there's this small town that's been protected for thousands of years, and the protagonist has to give up the location of this small town where all these innocent people have been living, this protected town. They have to risk that in order to stop the larger event from happening. And so, you know, when you're reading up to it, they're like, oh, we're going to give up the location of this place. And it's like, well, that's awful because all those people are now at risk. But at the same time, it comes down to them saying, well, yes, they're at risk. But if we don't stop what's coming, those people are at risk anyways. So then the stakes of giving that place up are, you know, a little bit, it's almost higher stakes to not do it versus to do it. Depending on how you look at it. And it's up to the character to be like, well, we're going to do it because if we don't, then this happens versus this. So then it becomes the character's decisions, and we can let the characters lead us and explain to the reader why or why not an event actually is or isn't high risk.
Yeah. Okay. They're just explaining a trolley problem to you. So it's always good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, nothing else. I don't know. Anything else on creating stakes? Have we covered everything? Don't we? Like, this is amazing. We've solved all your problems. If you're
did we come to any conclusion?
No, that's not the point. The point is
the point is make your stakes what you want and don't mix it up. Mix it up.
Yeah, I definitely think mix it up, high and low stakes, to give your readers something to relate to.
Yeah. And also not just within one book, but like don't like mix up your recipe too. Like,
yeah,
don't follow the same rhythms. It makes it boring.
We gave you a ton of great story prompts and ways to write, so everyone
I expect to see a lot of people turning in zombie asteroid short stories now.
Yeah, just like the head. It's just like giant heads coming in.
Oh, nice. I was picturing like conglomerate, a bunch of bodies together.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I also like that one. And then it lands and just splits into all these.
And then they just take off running, full sprint because of those zombies.
Oh my god.
Fast zombies.
I don't know why when you said asteroids, but I don't know. I've always wanted to write like a Halloween book. And I've always wanted to write like a kid's book. So for the longest time, I wanted to write like conservation themed educational children's books, right? And so, but because I love Halloween, I've also wanted to do like a Halloween children's book. And I just, as soon as you said that, I was like zombies and zoodles. I don't know why.
Oh, fun.
That popped into my brain, but just zombies and zoodles.
I love that.
Nice. That's when fantastic. You said kids book, I was like, okay, A is for asteroids, Z is for zombies, and it's the A to Z of apocalypse.
That's fantastic. Wow.
E is for the bat that you're going to need to beat off the zombies.
C is for Cataclysm.
I was gonna say C
D is
just
dead
for
because that's what everyone's going to be.
E is for everyone.
Ebola.
Jeez.
Okay, we're halfway there.
Yeah, we're almost. We can keep going. So even more story prompts for everyone here. All the bestsellers. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, don't forget. Obviously, it sounds like it could be complicated, but I feel like we really did iron out a lot of stuff for you with creating stakes. We discovered stuff we didn't even realize, because we write all the time, and then when you take a step back and look at it, and go, oh wow, this is how it works, and we're doing it, But yeah, I would agree with keep it relative, keep it relational, so that we can have a good connection with the character, or the readers can have a good connection with your characters. That's fantastic.
I think a good way as well, and I'm sure that there's probably a name for this. This is probably an exercise that I should probably know. But if you put it on a chart, right? Chart out where your stakes are in a graph and say, if you're looking at it and you're like, okay, everything right now is at like a 10 across my whole story, well, that's a problem, because you can't have a story that's just all high stakes. There has to be a little bit of give and take, and it should give and take and just kind of go slowly build up to that ultimate high stakes. So that's also a good exercise too. If you're not really sure, think about it. Think about how it relates and how many people are affected by it. Who knows about these decisions or these questions, and then graph it out. And if you're all around the same level, we'll try and see if you can tweak those a little bit to just make it a little bit more relatable in some ways and maybe less relatable in others. And I still stand by the fact that those less relatable ones are going to be more high stakes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like we just kind of talked about it, like everything's high stakes, I guess. Even those low stakes. I love those little ones, though. To me, those are more exciting. The nervous foot tapping as you're waiting for your date to show up. That is way more exciting to me than here comes zombie asteroid.
Hey, is the Starbucks barista going to say my name correctly?
Ostan?
Oh, no. You don't understand. You would think it's really easy.
Yeah.
But at least 50% of the time I get Oscar.
Oscar.
Wow.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're an Oscar.
The best I've ever gotten was Collie. Collie. Like,
Wow.
not even like,
close.
not
It's
even
impressive.
like Colly. I'm like, who? I've never even heard of this name. This is
They've got to be doing it on purpose at this point. It's an
just bored.
expectation.
It is. It's the best, like the ultimate marketing ploy is to intentionally spell it wrong so that people will take a photo of it and be like, look, Starbucks spelled my name wrong.
Yeah.
And plaster it all over the internet, and it costs them absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And I would think Bob would be pretty easy, but I got Bobby, and I'll take that. I like that. That was nice.
Excellent.
They get an extra 30%. So, all right. Closing segment. I was trying to think of when. We do don't do this, but my brain is not functioning tonight. I think I'm going to ask a question. I don't know if we've done this question before, where if you could pick one book for you to live in, which book would it be? Did we do this already?
No, but my brain picked the worst possible one initially.
Oh, well, what is it?
It said, hey, you know what you should pick? You should pick a dystopian novel and go Brave New World. And it's like, no, Austin, why would you do that?
With Soma. You just get to relax with Soma.
Yeah, no. Let me think of a real answer.
Okay.
I have to say, Austin's going to kill me for this. I'm going to say Harry Potter.
Ooh.
Because
I like that.
just like the magic and the excitement and the freaking candy. Like, I want to go on a cool train ride, have all kinds of fun, like the chocolate frogs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, yes, please.
Do chocolate frogs feel pain?
Oh.
We don't care. They taste good.
That's fair. But to your point, Holly, it's also a really easy magic system to pick up. Like, I just got to know some words, wave a little wand,
It's all.
I could get on board with that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I can't remember what it is. You guys are gonna have to Google this. Everyone who's listening has to Google this. If you have not seen this meme yet, the guy who plays Ron Weasley, someone took a photo of him at a gas station pumping his gas, and he said some outrageous thing that was related to Harry Potter. Oh God, what? Hold on, you continue. I'm gonna have to look this up. It was amazing. I should have looked it up first.
Find this. Meanwhile.
Trying to think of like an actual happy world.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of a novel series where I'm like, yeah, those people were happy.
I was going to say a Dr. Seuss book, but I'm going to go with Through the Looking Glass.
Really?
That's my favorite Disney movie, Alice in Wonderland. But just everything is just topsy-turvy, upside down, wacky, random, and I love it. Like, I would love that. I would love to just take a taste of a mushroom, and usually I go out into outer space. But this in the book, I would like grow, 10 feet or something like that, or I shrink way down. I would love that all the time, all day. So that'd be mine. Through the Looking Glass.
Oh man, I don't know.
Did you find it, Holly?
I did.
Okay, go ahead.
I did. So I guess it was a video. So the guy who played Ron Weasley was getting gas and somebody filmed him. And so in the Harry Potter novel, one of the spells that they use is Expecto Patronum.
Okay.
And so he saw someone he saw somebody filming him, and he raised up the gas nozzle like a magic wand and said expensive petroleum.
That's awesome. Well, good for him.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Oh man. Okay, so the only one that I could think of where it's like, okay, cool, there's like a little bit of magic. Well, there's a lot of magic, and for the most part, happy endings. I'm like Chronicles of Narnia. Like, I just want things to be okay. Like, if I'm going to choose to live in a different world, I want it to be mostly happy.
Yeah.
Like Harry Potter, I don't need magic Nazis running around. Sorry, Holly, but like Voldemort and Death Eaters is a big thing to add to my world. Like I don't want to live with.
Yeah. That'd be fun though. Just owning one of their shops there, would be fun. The magic.
I feel like that'd be a more interesting. I just want to. I want a whole book from Ollivander's shop. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. Let's do that.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, that's it. That's our show for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. All three of you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel at the link below so you don't miss any of the Writers Room content. We always love to hear from our listeners. So if you have a question or a topic you want us to dive into, get in touch. I'm trying to read my notes. Wait, we're not leaving yet. I just forgot something. So the three of us have not met in probably like over a month to do a podcast. Why don't we do like a quick catch up? What are we doing? What are we working on, honey?
So I actually went back to the drawing board and I got a Canva whiteboard, and I've never used a whiteboard for any of my writing. I always use Word to plot out my novels, and I plot it out by chapter. And I just have been playing around. I've been doing a lot of marketing lately, and so I've been playing around with Canva, and there are a lot of their new features, and I started using the whiteboard, and I was like, oh my gosh, I went into this whiteboard and I started plotting out my entire next novel on whiteboard. And as I was doing it, it was so helpful because I picked up on a couple plot holes. And I noticed I kind of did it as sticky notes across the top as chapters, and then a brief like what's important that's happening in this chapter. And then I followed through with like different colors underneath it for which characters were in that chapter, and then what, one important thing that was happening or that they were feeling or whatever. And it was awesome because I found a couple little plot holes that I hadn't really thought about. And it totally like pushed me into getting those creative juices going again, because for the last little while, I've not been writing. And I keep thinking about my book though, which is good as well. It just, turns out that you have to actually sit down and write it.
Yeah.
Do you?
Nice. How about you, Austin?
So I've been continuing on with I'm submitting Swallow the Sun to our writing group. So I think I'm now 20 to 25% through submissions, which, Holly, I don't know that you can understand that that's already a quarter of the way through the book because nothing's happened yet. But a lot of it's been set up, and so it's Eldritch Horror in space, which is fun because still to this point, I don't think you've seen anything Eldritch Horror yet, and it's just been really fun to build that out and get that going. So like my goal for the year is to finish 2 full books, get them ready, like have them as final drafts. So I'm hoping to get that one finished. So I need to ramp up on that, and then trying to figure out what else to do. Like I really want to do the sequel to my first book, but it's such a headache, and I'm still haven't been able to like revisit it because it deals with a lot of like, pandemic because they magically cured disease and then somebody came in that wasn't like part of that, and like nobody has any immune system. So it like destroys everybody, but it's like a major plot point. So it's like I don't want to get rid of that just because, real world reasons. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I want to say that it's funny that you say that, we're a quarter of the way through Swallow the Sun and that nothing has happened yet, because it comes back to our low stakes, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing has happened, but a lot has happened. And it's all been these like emotional, subtle changes. So reading it, everyone's been captivated because there's all these like weird little things that are happening and we all notice them. We're like, oh, that's weird. Like, what is this going to turn into? We know that something freaky is about to happen. Mm-hmm. But again, it hasn't been anything major, but it's still been very interesting because of those low stakes and those like more emotional connections.
Well, and it's funny too, because it's like, it's technically an Eldritch Horror story, but like, that's really just the backdrop. Like that has nothing to like, it has to do with the plot, but like that doesn't have to do with the crux of the story. Like it's a trolley problem in space is what it turns out to be. And so it's like, but the Eldritch Horror part is part of the setup, not part of the actual tension. And so, yeah, it's a fun story. And I actually only added the Eldritch Horror because of a typo, actually. So
that's funny
because I have the Eldritch Horror Magical School series, and one of the heads of it is Aldo. And whenever she's talking, I had her. She was supposed to say also, and I accidentally typed Aldo, and I was like, "That's funny." And so I rewrote the whole thing to introduce that the leader of the Eldritch School, how he got his start was Aldo. Being the captain of this vessel. Yeah. And like that's how that entire thing got turned into an Eldritch Horror story, was a typo.
That's amazing.
Right. So wasn't that the name of the author? Is it Aldo Huxley that wrote isn't it?
It's
who wrote
something like that.
Yeah. Who wrote Your Brave New World. Isn't it Aldo Huxley? Anyways. All right, Austin's gonna look for that.
Bob, what about you? What have you been working on?
Like you said, you haven't been writing, and I did that too. I took like a couple months off. My brain is just not a high functioning author all the time. So, but I am back to writing. My book started a year and a half ago, I think. Death by Invitation Only. I'm trying to be as clever as I can be, and it is a mystery. And I am not. I had all these other ideas about cozy writing, being a cozy mystery author. I do not want anything to do with mysteries anymore. I'm just like, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm out. It is so hard to try to be clever and setting up. So that's what I'm doing right now. Is they figured everything out, and now I have to go back into the first few chapters to plant all the seeds. Where for discovery later. So it's kind of a huge pain. I'm not used to writing like this. So that's it. That's all I got. I have tons of other. It is Aldo Huxley, isn't it?
It's Aldous, but yeah, Aldous? He might go by Aldo.
No, yeah. I was his friend. I call him Aldo, even though.
Yeah, so Aldo Huxley.
It is Aldous, huh?
Aldous. Okay. Yep.
All right.
Well, there you go. It was all connected in the end.
In the end, it all comes back around. Okay, well, good. I'm glad we got to catch up. Now we can say goodbye. And I feel bad for those listeners that as soon as they hear, don't forget to subscribe, they probably shut off and they missed our awesome content. for those valued listeners that you stay all the way to the end, you get extra.
We
stuff.
Appreciate.
We appreciate you,
We
for
do.
listeners. Thank you.
Oh, we have 4 now. We had 3 a minute ago.
It picked up. Yeah, just a little while ago. All right, folks. Until then, keep writing. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.